Well, thank you everyone for joining and welcome to the 13th week of A Course in Miracles Zoom lessons. I'm so excited every week that you guys show up. So I'm going to get started. Of course, we have a lot going on. I'm excited about tonight. So I'm going to do lesson 13 real quick. Lesson 13 says, what's it say? And I'm gonna be very specific about where I'm reading from because I know Khadidra says she got the book. She's writing notes. I know Ebony writes notes. So everybody who has the book, um, I'm gonna specifically reference the paragraph, the page and paragraph that I'm reading from for future reference and future study. I think so lesson 3. So lesson 13 says, meaningless world engenders fear. So we know the last lesson talked about we live in a meaningless world, that it doesn't have meaning. And today's ideal is really another form of the preceding one, except that it's more specific as to mention emotion aroused. Actually, a meaningless world is impossible. Nothing without meaning exists. However, it does not follow that you will not think that, however, it does not follow that you will not think you perceive something that has no meaning. On the contrary, you will be particularly likely to think to do perceive it. So I knocked that lesson up. So, but that's what lesson 13 is. And let me go to the principles of miracles 31 through 33. So principle 31 says, miracles should inspire gratitude, not awe. You should thank God for what you really are. The children of God are holy, and the miracle honors their holiness, which can be hidden but never lost. 32 says, I inspire all miracles, which are really intercessions. They intercede for your holiness and make your perceptions holy. By placing you beyond the physical laws, they raise you into the sphere of celestial order. In this order, you are perfect. And finally, principle 33 says miracles honor you because you are lovable. They dispel illusions about yourself and perceive the light in you. They thus atone for your errors, which we're going to be talking about, by freeing you from your nightmares, by releasing your mind from the imprisonment of your illusions. They restore your sanity. So those are principles 31 through 33. A meaningless world engenders fear is lesson 13. So today's theme is do not worry. That is the theme of tonight's Zoom meeting. Do not worry. Matthew chapter 6, verses 25 through 27 says, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? I always loved this scripture because it just puts everything into perspective. And the Bible says that we cannot add a single hour to our life by worrying, but we can most certainly subtract time from our life by worrying. Worrying is toxic to our health. I'm going to read from Conversations with God, page 187 through 189. This is the first book of Conversations with God, and where God talks about what worry does to the body. So God says, the not so obvious truth is that most people worry themselves to death. Worry is about the worst form of mental activity there is, next to hate, which is deeply self-destructive. Worry is pointless. It is wasted mental energy. It also creates biochemical reactions which harm the body, producing everything from indigestion to coronary arrest and a multitude of things in between. Health will improve almost at once when worrying ends. Worry is the activity of a mind which does not understand its connection with me. Hatred is the most severely damaging mental condition. It poisons the body, and its effects are virtually irreversible. Fear is the opposite of everything you are, and so has an effect of opposition to your mental and physical health. Fear is worry magnified. Worry, hate, fear together with their offshoots, which are anxiety, bitterness, impatience, avarice. Avarice means extreme greed, unkindness, judgmentalness, and condemnation all attack the body at the cellular level. It is impossible to have a healthy body under these conditions. Similarly, although to a somewhat lesser degree, conceit, self-indulgence, and greed lead to physical illness or lack of well-being. All illness is created first in the mind. And so Neale responds and says, how can that be? What if conditions contracted from another, like colds or AIDS? And God says, nothing occurs in your life, nothing, which is not first a thought. Thoughts are like magnets, drawing effects to you. The thought may not always be obvious and thus clearly causative, as in, I'm going to contract a terrible disease. That's not usually what we think. The thought may be, and usually is, far more subtle than that. Like, I'm not worthy to live, or my life is always a mess, or I am a loser, or God is going to punish me, or I am sick and tired of my life. Thoughts are a very subtle yet extremely powerful form of energy. Words are less subtle and more dense, and of course, more creative. Actions are the most dense of all. Action is energy in heavy physical form and heavy motion. When you think, say, and act out a negative comment or concept such as I am a loser, you place tremendous creative energy into motion. Small wonder you come down with a cold. That would be the least of it. It is very difficult to reverse the effects of a negative thinking once they have taken physical form. Not impossible, but very difficult. It takes an act of extreme faith. It requires an extraordinary belief in the positive force of the universe, whether you call that God, Goddess, the unmoved mover, prime force, source, or whatever. Healers have just such faith. It is a faith that crosses over into absolute knowing. They know that you are meant to be whole, complete, and perfect in this moment now. This knowingness is also a thought, and a very powerful one. It has the power to move mountains, to say nothing of molecules in your body. That is why healers can heal often, even at a distance. So again, we are returning back to the concept of the power of our thoughts. And we're talking about, he's highlighting what worry and hatred, does to the body. I'm going to read from A Course in Miracles, page 63, and I'm looking at paragraphs 6 through 7. No, I'm sorry, paragraphs 3 through 7, for those of you who want to follow along or take notes. So page 63, A Course in Miracles, paragraphs 3 through 7. And I love this chapter in A Course in Miracles, because there's so much compassion behind it. And so Jesus says, when you are sad, know this need not be. Depression comes from a sense of being deprived of something you want and do not have. Remember that you are deprived of nothing except by your own decisions, and then decide otherwise. When you are anxious, realize that anxiety comes from the capriciousness of the ego. No, this need not be. You can be as vigilant against the ego's dictates as for them. When you feel guilty, remember that the ego has indeed violated the laws of God, but you have not. Leave the sins of the ego to me. That is what atonement is for. But until you change your mind about those whom your ego has hurt, the atonement cannot be put in place. And he says, while you feel guilty, your ego is in command, because only the ego can experience guilt. This need not be. Watch your mind for the temptations of the ego, and do not be deceived by it. It offers you nothing. When you have given up this voluntary dispiriting, you will see how your mind can focus and rise above fatigue and heal. Yet you are not sufficiently vigilant against the demands of the ego to disengage yourself. This need not be. And then paragraph 7 says, the habit of engaging with God and his creation is easily made if you actively refuse to let your mind slip away. The problem is not one of concentration. It is the belief that no one, including yourself, is worth consistent effort. Side with me consistently against this deception, and do not permit this shabby belief to pull you back. The disheartened are useless to themselves and to me, but only the ego can be disheartened. So we're not useless. It's the ego that is useless. But Jesus is saying, your quote unquote sins that bring you guilt, give that up to me. I'm in charge of the atonement. So basically he's saying there's no need to be sad. There's no need to be depressed, anxious, or guilty. Withdraw from the ego's desires and commands. There is nothing that you lack. There is no sin that you have committed. Only the ego has violated God's laws. And Jesus says, leave them to me. This need not be if you're sad. We have the tools to release us from the bondage of egoic conditioning. From all the years of being told that we're small, all the media we have seen that gives allegiance to ego, from all the despair we have experienced. We have a scientific method to free our minds right here. A Course in Miracles, page 58, paragraph 8 says, the ego is the mind's belief that it is completely on its own. We are not on our own. Remember, the ego knows nothing. We have a very motivated elder brother that is here to ensure our freedom from fear. A Course in Miracles, page 55, paragraph 8, sentence 6 says, when you are afraid, be still and know that God is real and you are his beloved son and daughter, in whom he is well pleased. Do not let your ego dispute this, because the ego cannot know what is as far beyond its reach as you are. So tonight is an appeal for us to recommit to doing the lessons every day. We're in the beginning of a new year. We're still in the month of January. What a wonderful time to rededicate ourselves to consistently doing our lessons daily. This is an investment in you. This is an act of self-love for yourself, to free yourself of depression, anxiety, and hatred that Jesus is referring to. So let's continue to follow Jesus up the ladder behind him as he follows God. A Course in Miracles, pages 8 through 9, Jesus says he is in charge of the process of atonement. He said his part of the atonement is the canceling out of all errors that we could not otherwise correct. And when we have been restored to the recognition of our original state, we naturally become part of the atonement ourselves. And page 9 says the power to work miracles belongs to us. He will provide the opportunities to work miracles, but we must be ready and willing. So this book, A Course in Miracles, is Jesus's work to help us free ourselves. I have heard from Jesus through Tina more than once that he had this book written 50 years ago for us today. He knew all this would be going down. Higher vibrational spirits have mentioned that we've been so conditioned through media, through religions, through politics, that our free will is being taken away from us. So this is our return to our power. This is our return to our love. If you're not feeling quite right, anxious, sad, depressed, and even if you're not, please be diligent in doing your lessons every day. And I'm telling myself the same thing. Some mornings I get up and I'm working on the lesson. I'm like, I haven't even done my lesson for the day and I'm working on the Zoom. So I know that it can be a burden sometimes, but think about the energy and the effort we have had to extend most of our lives, especially in school. The constant memorization of our times table, the repetitive learning of the table of elements, historical facts that were drilled in our minds, constantly having pushed them on us that had nothing to do with our spirit. Having to stay inside of a building and sit on hard chairs when all we wanted to do was go outside and play and connect with Mother Earth. So it is just as necessary for us to be dedicated to the deprogramming of our minds. Deprogramming our minds out of ego and back into love takes effort as well. Matthew chapter 11, verse 30 says, "For my yoke is easy, my burden is light." So God only wants us to be free, powerful beings that we are. Let's be diligent. And we're going to talk a little bit more about worry. And before we have our discussion, I wanted to present a question to everybody. So just a moment. I'm going to mute myself real quick. Okay, so I have a question for y'all. So the question of the night is, my question is, there are two sets of parents, right? Both sets of parents have 5-year-olds, and they're sending them off to a kindergarten field trip. One set of parents worry about their kid getting back home safe. They're worried about their kid going alone with the teachers and everything, and they're not there as a chaperone. And the other set of parents do not and go on with their day. So, which set of parents demonstrated a more loving act to their kindergartner? Does anybody have an opinion on that? Which parents demonstrated a more loving act to their 5-year-old?
I would try. I'll say the parents that were not, worrying and overbearing and just putting that energy out into the universe. You know how what we resist persists. So you're resisting something bad happening so much that you are probably, bringing it forth. So I think that they mistake it as love. Like when when parents overfeed their children and they all become overweight, it's because they love them. They enable it.
Yes.
Um, but subconsciously it's hurtful. So
Yes. That's
my
absolutely
guess.
it. That's absolutely it. Hey, Takia, that's absolutely it. Of course, the parents who did not worry are the parents that demonstrated the more loving act. Let me explain. I'm reading from a book called, another, of course, channel book from Jesus. This actually, Tina wrote this. She didn't write it. He channeled her to write it. It's called Love and a Map to the Unaltered Soul. So I am reading pages 104 through 105. I tried to shorten this, but this is so good, y'all. Like, I tried to shorten the amount that I needed to read, but it's all so good. I was shocked when I first read this information. It's not something that we normally think about. So it says, it is difficult to determine what loving behavior is because many of you believe you act in a loving way, when in fact, you do not act in a loving way. You are completely unloving in the form of your behavior or the words that you speak. But you believe you are right, so you are confused. If the ordinary parent is asked, "Are you loving?" he or she would say yes. However, he or she worries about his or her children. This is unloving behavior. Here is an example. So it says, let us say your children in elementary school have gone on a field trip to a museum or something, and you envision them being kidnapped or left behind by the bus. You create powerful negative scenarios because you infuse your thoughts with fear. We talked about that, infusing our consciousness with fear, which is strong emotion, and you negatively use your creative, godlike abilities to hurt your child. Your child is the victim in the scenario you imagine. So you literally inflict hateful thoughts on him or her. This demonstrates how confused you are in your society because you do not understand how thought works and how energy, especially focused energy, works. You know you are godlike in your ability to create. Focused energy is an energy that has a strong feeling associated with it. So when you feel fear, you literally enliven that thought with your focus and all that energy because you are godlike in your ability to create. When you entertain fearful thoughts that viscerally affect the energy systems of your body, you could feel it in anxiety and nervousness. You use your creative force negatively. This is how you manufacture scenarios in the world. You attract to creation and bring into manifestation fearful scenarios such as war, disease, burglary, murder, rape, and shootings. This is the energy you bring into the world through the alignments in your mind. Then he goes on to talk about how we create our world through our thoughts. You've been taught that your mind and thoughts are separate from the world, but they are not. They are the generative force of life on your planet. And you have been indoctrinated in such a distorted way that you all manufacture the world you see out there. You are horrified at what you see. But that demonstration of what you call love, worrying about your child, is the frequency that brings the chaotic world into manifestation. So, in this particular circumstance, to love and care about your children is to act as if they are too held in the hands of God, that they too are guided by their own intuition, their own teachers and guides. You trust that because they're going on that trip, they are meant to experience whatever happens on the trip and will be fine. If you think about them on the trip and start to envision a negative scenario, by loving, be loving, by short circuiting that vision and seeing them in your mind's eye as having a good time, being safe with their friends and their teacher, and hopping on the bus at the end of the trip, satisfied and joyful. That is a loving act. When we speak about situations as loving or needing love, a perfect example of how an ordinary human mind is out of alignment with love is when it is misguided into believing that worrying about someone demonstrates love for that person. No, loving someone is thinking about that person as safe and happy and seeing him or her as enjoying life in his or her experiences, whether or not you are with that person or not. That is loving. Consider, they give another example. Consider your personal, intimate relationships. When your partner is late arriving home, you might begin to envision him or her having an affair or flirting with someone or being in a car accident. These are the lines along which your Western minds are trained. If you think this way, you will attract that very thing frequency wise into your experience. It might not manifest exactly that event, but it will have the same frequency of the thoughts you hold with energy, passion, and emotion. You know how it feels when you begin to worry your partner is meant to walk through that door at 6 o'clock, and then it isn't there at 6:15. He or she isn't there at 6:30, and you send messages with your phone in whatever form you can, but you do not hear back. Your mind makes up negative stories and you worry. You call this love. You say, I love so and so. I wonder where he or she is. I hope he or she is safe, but your feeling is negative. The feeling is fear. When you say, I hope he or she is safe, but you feel fear, the words are meaningless. It is the frequency you hold that is the creative force behind this universe. Your frequency is reflected back to you all the time. We must redefine love here for you over and over again because you have been indoctrinated over and over again in the wrong way. To love, in fact, you have been taught how to hate people or envision them in accidents and call it love. Do you not see how distorted this is? Do you not see how poisonous this is? When you look at your own body and judge it and hate it and say it should be other than what it is, you attack the very thing that allows you to have all the joyful experiences, lessons, pleasures, and wonders of life. You attack the very thing that gives you those meaningful experiences and education. You do not love your body when you hate it the way it is and drag it to the gym and starve it and pound it into submission. That is not love. And you will find negative health consequences arising in the body. You will find twisted ankles and pulled muscles when you treat your body that way. You must look at your body with appreciation all the time, even though it is a symbol of separation and one of the most challenging aspects of this experience. When you bring loving appreciation to it as the vehicle you are temporarily driving and experiencing this world through, Then you will raise your vibration and you will bring health, vitality, and sexual energy to the body. Those things tell you that you are thriving. Good feelings tells you that you are thriving. When you bring shame to the body and accuse it of being sinful or dirty or unloving in some way, you are acting out of accord with love. For many of you, these distorted views have come through church teachings such as that flesh or sexual energy is sinful or of the devil and will lead you into darkness. These are thoughts and ideas that make you feel bad. And because you are indoctrinated in them, they have a lot of energy behind them. You will feel a visceral reaction in your body when you shame yourself, when you shut that energy down. Sexual energy is a creative, divine aspect of God mind. It is the vital, creative force that is used in your life to bring into manifestation that which you wish. It can be in the form of children. Many beings love to have children and share their lives with them, and sexual energy is clearly used for that. Sexual energy is an enlivening and vital part of your creative self, and when you shut that energy down, you are unloving. One of the great tragedies in your society is that sexual energy is demonized and hated. It is considered shameful, so it is hidden and repressed in your bodies. This energy, when it flows, brings creative, vital ideas into your imagination. When this energy flows, it allows you to dance and to feel pleasure in the world. When you close this energy down, you feel dead. You do not feel vital. This is one of the causes of aging. One of the great fears you have in your society is aging in an unloving way or feeling that you have lost your vital force. Well, that force is in the form of sexual energy. So when you have hateful thoughts about the aspect of yourself or think it is wrong or distance yourself from it, you are acting in an unloving way. So, ladies, I know that was lengthy, but when I read this, I think I was on the plane when I read this, or somewhere, of course, before COVID. I was shocked, especially about the concept that worrying is like actually a hateful thing. And since then, if I've had people to say, I'm worried about, I'm like, please don't worry about me. Don't like envision me living my best life. Don't worry about me, because they're literally sending you the vibration of that worry. Of course, we don't know that. We don't know this. We thought that worrying is a loving act. Um, it is not. So I definitely want to invite to hear you guys in any feedback on what was said tonight, whether it was about how worrying impacts our body, or just understanding that worry is not a form of love. Does anybody have any feedback on that?
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Takia.
Hi, Miss Loretta. I just wanted to make a quick comment about what you said about worrying being a form of hate, and that's shocking to me too. Like, that's kind of crazy to me, because I was always taught that like hate is more of an emotion, like or a feeling towards someone, but it's interesting to know that it can also just be a thought, and really a innocent thought. I mean, I guess that's innocent if you're worrying about somebody you're thinking that is love. But I just thought that that was interesting to know that you can really be sending out hateful energy by a thought
Yeah,
of
I have
worry.
to be,
And
and
so it's kind of crazy.
worrying is mixed with emotion, right? So worry mix is what do you have when you worry? Fear. You're afraid. Oh
Right.
my God, my kid is gonna be kidnapped. How do I wasn't able to chaperone this time? How do I know they're not gonna get kidnapped? Or forgot, lost, missed the bus, whatever. And we go, especially with our minds, we go into the whole scenario. Like we envision the whole setup. And so you're sending the whole time they're on that field trip or whatever. If you have a parent that's sick or anything, the whole time that you're thinking about them, you're sending them that's bad mojo. You're sending them bad energy. And so what I have a 19-year-old who got her license and drives. So every time she pick up the keys, I would be, I'd be like, Lord have mercy, please just get my child back home safe. She drive fast. She's impatient, But what I've started to do is I just put a pyramid of light. I imagine a pyramid of light around her and around the car. And I do that and I keep it moving. I keep it moving with my day. I don't stay camped out on, because I used to be like, a car accident is inevitable. It's just math. It's simple math. Eventually she's going to get it. So I just put a pyramid of light around her and the car and I keep it moving. So yes, I was grateful to read this. That, what, worrying is not, the intention behind it, of course, is loving. We don't want our loved ones to be harmed. So the intention behind it is loving, but the act of worrying is not loving. It's not loving.
I had a couple of quick things. It's kind of a lot, but I may not ask you all here. I may ask you some after to not take up everyone's time. But it's funny because like you're kind of trained to look at worrying as love, because it's like you sending your kid to college, you're not worried about her, you're not worried what could happen. And if you're not worried, you almost have to like feel guilty about it. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that passage gives us permission to just let go, right? In some ways. So that just came to me. But I wanted to ask, so is that ego? When we worry, is that an egoic act?
So no, I don't think that's a good question. I think yes, worrying is ego in the fact that Jesus defined ego as the mind's belief that it's on its own, right? So he said ego is the mind's belief that it's on its own. That's not true. And I love how Jesus said in his book that your children have their own spirit guides. They got their own angels, and God loves them as much, if not more, than we do, right? Just think that they're going out in the world alone. That's not true. So it is ego. But the heart behind it, of course, is our love for our children. Where did we get this concept that worrying was loving or healthy? We got it from our movies. We got it from, we are conditioned to think that that's what you do. That's what a good parent does.
Right.
They worry. And that's why it took a minute for everybody to figure out, okay, which set of parents were actually loving. It took a minute because we're conditioned to think that that's what you do. That's what we do. We sit and we worry about our kids, and you're not supposed to go on with your day. You're not supposed to get a manicure or pedicure. You're not supposed to, make love to your partner when your kid is out on the field trip. You're supposed to sit at the table and wring your hands and don't be okay until that kid gets back. And that's not, we find it's not loving. So I've just tried to be intentional when I'm tempted to worry, to not do that. That pyramid thing works for me because I feel like, okay, I'm pushing out positive energy. I'm pushing out protective light to my kid.
So then not worrying can almost prevent something negative, right? If you don't worry, that's energy too, right? And that can almost protect them, right?
Exactly. Okay. Or even
I love that.
Not only just abstaining from worry. And so say you're a little concerned, especially with a 5-year-old, right? A kindergartner, to, like he said, envision them having, we really go into fantasy about negative events. We actually envision them being in the bathroom while everybody's loading up on the bus, and then they come out the bathroom and look around and nobody's there, and they look and the bus is already leaving. We go into that fantasy. So in the same way, to go into the opposite fantasy. Oh, I wonder what she's doing now. She's probably next to her best friend on the bus. They're probably sharing some gum or sneaking out, a little candy. And, so and so, that teacher really likes her. So I know she's checking on her, use that creative energy to send all that loving energy and light to your child. You know, this is our freedom from fear. This is our way to take back our power. It's on purpose that we think worrying is loving. We are purposely led astray. So I just love the great strains that that God and Jesus and everybody is going through to teach us. They are our guides and our teachers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You have a halo around you.
Oh, girl,
There's a
that's
halo.
my lamp behind me. Thank you, though, girl. I'll take it.